My next guest is one of the most exciting mixed martial artists in all of Australia. He is the Eternal MMA Lightweight Champion, and he joins me today, Mr. David Martinez. Champ, welcome to my show. And, you're wearing Captain America attire, and I have to say, I do appreciate that. Being an American myself, I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, he's probably one of my freaking favorite heroes, bro.
Perfect. Well, I hope all the good people in Australia can forgive the gross American accent. I hope you guys stick with me because we're going to get through a lot. First and foremost, David, I want to not talk necessarily about you, but I want to talk about a big event that's coming down your way, UFC 284. That's happening later this summer, February 2023 in Perth. You have got to be really excited about that. That's a massive card. I know it's on the other end of the country for you, but that's still really cool to see a UFC event of this caliber in your country.
Man, it's just good to have freaking UFC back in the country. After the whole COVID issues and UFC having to basically restrict themselves to America. What was it Fight Island and I guess in the Apex Arena? And
Exactly.
it's like had a fair few events with even no crowds, which was just weird. But when you're used to watching, the fights on the Ultimate Fighter, like you already have a sense for that kind of vibe.
Going into this card specifically, because there are a few fights that interest me. For me, the most interesting fight, it's got to be Robert Whitaker going up against Paulo Costa. I love Robert Whitaker. I think he's one of the most exciting fighters in all of MMA. That has got to be an exciting fight. Like, do you have like a lean in your gut? Does something tell you like how that fight's gonna go?
Man, look, I can never go against Whitaker. Uh, even when he fought Adesanya the second time, I was like, no, no, I think Whitaker's my boy here. He's got it. It ended up being a rather close fight, I would say.
I personally, this is an unpopular opinion. I thought he did enough personally in the second
Well,
go.
same. Look, watching it live, I was kind of like, oh, well, Adesanya is just running away with it. But then when I rewatched it, man, I was like, hold on.
Yeah,
Hey, I honestly think Whitaker won.
I did too. I thought he was landing. I thought if we're going off of damage, I thought his strikes were more impactful. I thought that as we knew he would, he dominated center control of the cage. He kept Izzy, kind of like on his heels. I thought most of the fight, and I thought I personally, if I were judging, I probably would have given it to Whitaker, and then everyone would have said I'm the terrible judge, I guess. But I kind of looked at it. I knew Izzy was going to get the decision because I was like, there's probably not enough there. But in my heart of hearts, I probably would have scored for him. I thought it was a good fight. I thought he did the necessary adjustments to make that fight go out on his terms. I thought he did exactly that. He looked great.
Yeah, yeah. But now, like with him fighting Costa on on home soil, I would say. But yeah, it's an exciting matchup. But I can't look past Whitaker. I think he's just got the movement and he's got the skill set enough to frustrate Costa to start with, and then yeah, from there on out, it's just going to be a long night for Costa, just running after him. I think.
That this is a fight that I wish it were the full 5 rounds. I really wish it were a 25-minute fight because I think you're going to see a lot of high level action. If I had to make a prediction on how this fight is going to go, I think Robert Whitaker finds a way in probably the last round. I think he'll find a way to get a finish. I do think he's going to end up knocking out Costa, and I don't think too many people are going to be upset by that.
Oh, I gotta give Costa credit though. He's really made movements with his social media and like he's a funny guy.
But
But
some of the stuff he does write about, I will say, it is kind of admittedly funny.
yeah, but I mean, like showing up to the weigh-ins with a bottle that says secret juice on it, like it's goddamn hilarious.
It is. David, I specifically want to like zero in on you now. And when I did research for this podcast, I looked at your entire career. And there's one thing that stands out. Well, there are a few things that stand out at me, but I wanted to get to like what I feel is the most critical piece for you. And it was
Um,
this.
I'm guessing it's when I changed my last name, isn't
No, actually.
it? No, sorry.
We'll keep it a mystery. We'll keep that a mystery. But for you, what was most interesting to me was you're tearing through guys and then you encounter adversity. And like, we're not just talking about a fight, we're talking about a 3-fight skid. And during that skid, it's always interesting to see to me, like, okay, well, how are they going to respond to that? Because I can only imagine how that plays out to be. It's like living a nightmare. I can only imagine for 18 to 24 months, because this isn't like football where, you give up a couple goals and then but you can go out there next week and do what you need to do and get the win. Like, we're talking about over a sustained period of time, not being in the win column. That's got to be rough. Like, not only from a physical standpoint, but just from a psychological standpoint, like going all that time, do you ever like start questioning yourself, like, do I really have what it takes to like thrive in this sport? Because this is, you're in a sport that we're not talking about football. Like, not a lot of people can do what you do. And it's got to be one of those things where it could be very easy for that sense of self-doubt to kind of creep in if you let it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that was it was a very rough period, man. Because they say you're only as good as your last fight, and I'm like looking at my last three, like no, maybe I'm just not cut out for this sport.
Right.
Yeah, but I remember like trying to make some changes, a lot of them at the time, and just nothing was working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I tried training with different people, nothing happened, and tried going to different places, tried doing more, tried doing less, and yeah, at the end of the day, uh, yeah, it's like going through lost in the desert, man.
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably like, if I could find a relatable thing, it's like asking out 3 girls, all 3 of them say no to you. And then like, you know, at that point, it's like, oh man, am I really ready to ask out a fourth, or am I just disfigured and horrible looking? I don't know. I can only
Yeah,
imagine. I know it's a ridiculous parallel, but I think it's probably relatable because we're talking about self-confidence, we're talking about an image, and fighting, yes, the physicality, the technique, all that stuff's important, but psychologically, if you're not squared away up there, like, it doesn't matter how good of a grappler you are or striker, you're going to be in for a rough night.
oh yeah, man. Like the sport, we can argue on percentages all day, but I would agree with the old 10% physical, 90% mental type thing. Because yeah, again, as much of physical training as we do, as much of a physical event as it is like if your mind's not right, everything else falls apart.
You are very, very experienced. You've been in this sport for a very long time, dating all the way back to 2011 when you're an amateur and fighting on the amateur scene throughout Australia. So I think it's really important to kind of like look in, and when you start adding up all of the time you've been in the cage, you're a veteran of the sport. You've been around a long time, and in that amount of time, you've probably seen a lot of people come and a lot of people go. What is the key in your mind staying in this sport, and what would you tell somebody who also is on a skid? Like, if you're like a young amateur just starting out and maybe your career didn't start off the way you had hoped, what would your message be to somebody like that?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing for longevity in the sport is to constantly like renew your love for it.
Mm.
Take time to remember why you got into the sport in the first place. Because so many different things come and go and grab your attention, particularly like in my case when I had such early success as an amateur, that type of things. And then you start to consider things like, oh, financial situations, sponsorships. People come out of the woodwork to try and jump on board because they see you as a potential success
Mm-hmm.
type. And when all these things start to hit you at once, it starts to morph the way you see it,
Mm.
like, and how you are with the sport. And yeah, if you don't catch yourself, that you don't take time to sort of reflect on like, why am I doing this? why am I in this sport and why am I going to stay in this sport? Like, you can just, everything else just takes you along. If you don't prioritize your life type thing, someone else will.
Mm.
So yeah, if you don't take time to reflect on, why is it you're doing it, and why are you in it, why do you love it, why would you continue to do it, someone else is going to decide that for you. And that's something you just don't want to happen in your life in general, let alone in a sport such as this.
I think one of the key things that you're hitting on, and it's funny because I recently went through something like this, albeit in my professional life, but you're talking about reflection. And I think when we start talking about that topic in general, what's typically the scenario? The scenario is something didn't go right. I need to
Yeah,
reflect on it, reevaluate, and then respond. I think it's also critical to do that when things are going well. You win a fight, you did everything that you wanted to. In your case, you got the lightweight title your last go out. I think having that a similar period of reflection is also important, even when things are going good. Um, I there was a opportunity for me. Things have been going really good at work, and I was given an opportunity for an advancement. And they asked me, like, hey Tyler, is this something you might be interested in? And I was like, I don't know yet. I need to think about it. I don't know yet. And nothing bad had happened. Everything had been going great. And then I came back into the office on Monday, and I was just like, this isn't really for me. I was like, I appreciate it, but I thought about it and was like, I thought about the path forward, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm willing to go on that journey right now. So thanks, but no
yeah,
thanks. And in fighting, it's always you have to like think about the next. And I don't know if we necessarily reflect so much on like what just had happened, good or bad. I think a lot of times fighters only do that when things go bad, and I think it's important to do it when things go well as well.
yeah, yeah. I agree, man. I believe you need a process that's remains very similar regardless of the result. Or so that sort of reflecting, regardless of whether you lose, win, or what happens, they're just going through the same process, and it keeps you a bit more stable, type thing. I liken it to people who when they get into, they have a hobby type
Mm-hmm.
thing, but then they decide to monetize it in some way, because they've picked up skills in that, and so they decide to make it almost a second job, and then they lose the love for it. Uh,
Very
because now,
relatable.
yeah,
Very relatable. I mean, everything you just said, I could apply that to this. And there have been other opportunities I could have taken advantage of, but then I was like, you know what? Like, why am I doing this? So I probably had to go through like a similar period of reflection. I had to ask all those questions. And then my answer is as soon as I get to a point where I'm unable to impact MMA in the way I want it to, in the way I want to, as soon as other people aren't able to benefit from what I've created, then I know that I've done a good job and I can call it a day and move on to something else. But until
yeah,
then, I look and I'm looking around. I'm like, oh man, I don't see anyone else doing what we're doing, so I'm going to keep doing this. And bam, here we are. But I would imagine more importantly for you, right? It's like you talk about reflection. Can you talk to me a little bit, like when you're getting ready to go into like a big fight? Well, all your fights are big, but you know what I'm saying. Like you get ready to go into a fight. Like what do you do mentally to prepare? I've always wondered what that process is like because it could be very easy to get kind of like overwhelmed. I would imagine.
yeah. Well, the process is of that changes slightly, each time as I gain like more experience. So then I become a bit more aware of my own thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But it was real easy at the start, when I first started fighting, because I was like, shaking and nervous, but I didn't have time to
Mm.
think. But as I became more and more experienced, all of a sudden things slowed down, and I found myself with plenty of time to think, and I'm like, this is not good. Because now I can think, but I don't know what to think about.
Is it easier? Well, let me rephrase this. in your amateur career or when you were a young pro, you're like the first or second fight out, like go out there, kid. Like, you show up to the arena, you hit your mitts, you get warmed up, and then basically by the time you've done that, hey, you're on, or hey, there's a fight going on right before you, bam, you're on. Now you're at a point where you're the co-main event or the main event. You're there for a while. So like, what do you do in the back room, like, to keep it chill and keep things easy? Because I feel like some people aren't chill and they're just like hyper the entire time. Other people are like reading books back there. They're watching movies. I've heard all kinds of things. So what's that answer like for you?
Yeah, it's me. I just find a spot where I can just go to sleep.
I think that's perfect. If you can actually sleep back there.
Yeah,
Wow.
which is amazing because I can't sleep any other at any other point of my life, it seems.
But you
But
can
yeah,
sleep back there without any issues.
yeah.
Wow. And then
And
you
there's
just
people.
set the alarm on your phone and then bam, I'm up and all right, let's hit mitts.
Well, I've since learned that the doctor when he comes around for the pre-fight checks, he's going to wake me up, so I don't need no phone alarm. But yeah, so I just go back, find a spot, and just nap because I'm like, uh, everyone else seems. Well, a lot of other fighters seem nervous.
Yeah.
Careful, that rubs off on you.
Yeah.
And the worst thing, man, when you're at the back is when your corner, say if you're in the blue corner, is just copying loss after loss, and the fighter's just coming back looking dejected, beaten up.
Dejected, battered.
Oh, I remember like in my last fight, my bro Jimmy, he just goes and has an absolute war, uh, and then he just comes back and like he's a completely different man. Like his face is like you would not recognize him, and like
And I
oh
would
snap.
imagine by the time you're getting a look at him, that first wave of pain is
Yeah,
starting, right? Because the endorphins have dropped off. You've, depending on where you are, the post fight interview had already happened. And then, like, you start seeing it after that interview and you're making that walk, like, back to the dressing room or whatever. You start seeing guys limp now. You start, because all those endorphins have ebbed. And, like, now all of a sudden, that wave of pain is starting to emerge. And then by the time they're in the back room, they don't need to put on a game face anymore. So then you could probably see grown men cry if necessary.
yeah, man, and like because it's hard enough watching like the other fighters in the same corner just coming back beaten up. Like we've just gone through war zone, like the troops coming back type business. But that last fight, because I had so many teammates on it, so just seeing them come back, like two of them came, Ryan Levy and Jamie, they both came back losing close split decisions. So they're just looking frustrated as heck. Yeah, Jimmy's gone through hell. Uh, yeah, and I didn't even get a chance to see Johnny, who actually won.
I tell
Which
you, I could only imagine, like, that has got to be the absolute worst way to lose a fight is a split decision. That's got to just, you know, got to be psychologically difficult to process and just accept it for what it is.
yeah,
Because it's easy if you get caught, you get knocked out, you get choked out. It's like, okay, well, it sucked, but it happened. I know what I
yeah,
did wrong, but you lose a split decision, you're just like, where did I go wrong? Like, I don't see
man.
it. That's got to be tough.
Can you imagine if like you had to fight tooth and nail with someone for 3 or even 5 rounds? You get to the end, you're both a bloody mess type thing, and then the ref just flips a coin.
And that's exactly what it is.
That's what a split decision is
Ugh.
based. You're just watching a coin flip.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's terrible because if you're the blue corner, you're always wondering if the powers that be were conspiring against you on that night. It
yeah,
makes you wonder, right? At least it makes me wonder. I
yeah.
want to talk about this latest version of you that I'm seeing. You look like a brand new guy, 2022. It's been a very kind year for you. I felt like the Tim Schultz fight That's the one I circled. And that was one of the more interesting fights to me because I looked at this fight on paper and I saw a 2-0 guy going up against a 7-4 guy. And I was very, very surprised, as I typically am, when I look to see who's picking who on Tapology for some of these Eternal fights. No one ever wants to pick you. I don't get it. I looked on that fight. Everyone was on the 2-0 guy. And I'm like, okay, this just must be everyone and their brother and like, his aunts and uncles are going in there and voting for him. I can understand that. But when I looked at it, I'm like, okay, that seems really sus. I'll be keeping an eye on that one. It just happened this past May. You were able to dominate that bout. You were able to take that fight to the ground, and I felt you're able to just have your total way with Tim Schultz. All respect to Tim Schultz. I wish him nothing but the best moving forward in his career. But I want to pick up on that theme. Are you always like the underdog for all your fights? Do people not really like proclaim like, oh wow, this guy's really good, like he's going to win, like he's awesome? Like I always feel like people are just like, oh, he's predictable, and I'm just like, I find that interesting. We only say that about grapplers. We never say that about strikers, right? We only say predictability with grapplers. I've never understood that. It's just funny to me.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree, man. I found it hard to get the support going my way. Even one of my on his own podcast had picked against me.
What? Oh my goodness. Again,
Like,
on the Schultz fight?
not on the Shields fight, no, but on my more recent one against Aguilera. Yeah, he picked Aguilera after I was training with him, and he was telling me like, "Oh, you got this, Dave. You got this." Gets on his show. He's like, "Aguilera's gonna win." You know, like, God damn it.
Oh my goodness. Well, I tell you what, the Schultz fight, for the people that missed that one, when I see you go out there, and I noticed it actually in both the Schultz fight and the Aguilera fight, when I see you compete, I see you in the ring. I think you do a very, very good job of using your striking to level change, and then you level change. The bouts end up on the mat, and then that's where these fights end. Like once you're down on the mat with you, like doesn't matter what your jujitsu is, doesn't matter what your get ups are, it's game over. And when you look back at like these two fights, if I'm you and if I'm your coach, there really isn't a lot to be disappointed about. There really isn't a lot that I could say like, oh man, we need to do a lot more work on X, Y, and Z. What are your thoughts on the Schultz fight as well as the Aguilera fight? Because I looked at two very solid, very complete performances. I don't really have anything to tell you other than just keep doing what you're doing because you look fantastic in both of them.
Yeah, well, man, I owe a lot to my coaches. For my recent performances, Ryan Dunstan, Ryan Doyle, like they both, they work on my like Doyle works my striking, Dunstan works my grappling, but they both like do a fantastic job of not getting in each other's way. If you get what I mean,
Yeah.
that allows my style to just sort of flow. Uh, you know, my striking flows into my grappling, but my grappling also helps my striking. And the mere threat of it seems to help.
You do something really cool, and I've noticed it. So maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe you have to switch it up. But what I notice is you will have success like with the level changes. You'll get the takedowns. If something happens, or whether we're going into the next round, or I don't think I've ever seen you get stood up yet, but if the fight changes and you find yourself on the feet, you do one thing really cool. You start throwing head kicks at people right away. Like, no, like I'm gonna throw a head kick right at you. And I'm surprised people haven't gotten caught with that yet, because you would think like, oh, this guy's gonna shoot on me and they're gonna keep their hands a little bit lower. But you start throwing that head kick up right away, and it forces their guard to go up high. You see that happen, and that's just like, okay, well then back to basics. Then we're going to go back to what we were doing before. I think you do a really good job of keeping people guessing. I think that's really important. See,
Yeah,
people call you predictable, but you're doing little things. And kudos to your opponents for not getting caught with that head kick, because I think it is going to land eventually.
Yeah, yeah. Well, man, it's a form of guerrilla warfare almost. Uh, as whereas I'm just trying to occupy certain lanes, and by attacking here, attacking there. Why? Because it draws the defenses around. You know, the head kick, like you said, draws the hands
Mm.
up top. Because the problem is with shooting, is people start carrying their hands low. You shoot straight into underhooks all the time, and
Yeah,
that's not fun.
yeah. Or you get
And
Marge Simpson in the face. We don't want that. We certainly don't want that, right? Or you don't want to get Masvidal on a freaking fight pass
oh,
fight. We don't want that.
yeah,
But I think I there are these little subtle things about your game, and I really like that. I like seeing that. For the we talked about this before we started recording about the Aguilera fight, about the build up to this fight, and I was watching the trailer and I got all excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I already seen this fight before, but like it made me like excited again when I watched it. And Aiden's talking a bunch of shit. He's saying what he's saying. He's saying that you're predictable, all this other stuff, and then he's going to beat you up, whatever. We go into the fight, and you were able to still do basically exactly what you wanted, just like how you did in the Schultz fight. Like, did you know going into that one where you're just like, I'm not gonna I'm not going to react to what he's saying. He thinks it's predictable. He thinks he knows what I'm going to do. Fine. Like, is there a part of you where it's like, oh man, he's saying all this stuff. Like, should I change things up? Like, do you ever like did you ever like have that? What was your game plan? I guess, David, going into that fight. Like, did you ever like talk with your coaches about maybe switching things up, or was that never part of the equation? Was it just, let him talk his shit? We're going to do what we're going to do.
oh no. Well, the way I dealt with like Aguilera, basically doing the play-by-plays, saying I was predictable, basically saying everything I do. I was just like, I'd have him like saying that in my mind, and as he'd finish it, I'd say like, yeah, grass is green, sky is blue, and because it's just like, yeah, that's what I do, but like that's not the problem. Problem is, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
And
I don't you think it's kind of funny though, because I don't think it's probably a fair comparison for you, but I'll go ahead and I'll throw it out there anyway. We all know what Habib was going to do every single fight, and guess what? He did it, and no one could stop it. So like, it's just one of those things where it's just like, okay, well, if good for you, you know what the game plan is. Then what are you going to do about it? Then you should be ready to go. Your takedown defense should be like top notch. You should not get taken down at any point over the course of this fight if you know what's going to happen. And then you get in the ring against somebody like you, and then it's a totally different story. It's just like, oh no, I know what comes next, but you can't stop it.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
you're able to just impose your will on people.
yeah. And then it's funny because Aiden and I were kind of matched up about 18 months earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to pull out that fight due to rib injury.
Mm-hmm.
And when our fight eventually did happen, like his ribs end up getting wrecked in the clinch, I think.
And well,
And
and I thought it was I thought you addressed the point pretty well. Like I said on the trailer, you talked about that. You're like, yeah, I got hurt. I had to withdraw something. I had another opportunity. I took advantage of that, but my health prognosis ended up being better than what I thought. I was out of fight. I can't re-ask for a fight after I dropped. And then he took like umbrage with that for some reason. Or
yeah,
maybe it was just him trying to sell the fight. I don't know. That's kind of a silly thing to get worked up over. But you were able to have your day. You were able to win the championship belt. And that had to have been a really special moment to get that back. It had to have been like a really like reaffirming uh, fight for you. Like you look at like all the fights that you've had, like I don't know, that's probably my favorite fight of yours that I've seen so far. But which one's your favorite when you look at all of them?
I would still say fighting Mike Wilkinson was probably my favorite fight, man.
Oh wow, that
Um,
okay. So that was Eternal MMA 42 back in 2019.
yeah, I don't know. There's just something special about that fight. as well as getting to punch on with Mikey. That was, yeah.
Can you talk to me like when you won your when you took the belt? I know that you choked Aiden out unconscious. I know he didn't want to tap. Hey, he's a tough guy. I give him credit for that. You ended up winning that belt. What were the next couple of weeks like after that? Like, did you give yourself some time to like celebrate the hard earned win? Were you are you the type that you're back in the gym like that Monday or Tuesday? What was it like for you?
It wasn't too great, man. I ended up getting sick almost instantly.
Oh God, what happened? Did you get COVID?
Not COVID, no, no. It was like some kind of gastro bug.
Oh
So
God.
Monday it was all right, but by Tuesday, dead.
So for the next 3, 4 days, you were not going out of your house. You were pretty much just locked in there waiting to get better.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was like, bedridden for the rest of the week, and then still struggling the week after. It's like,
Oh my
yeah,
God. Well, tell me
yeah,
you at least after you got better, you did something that was memorable with your wife. Well, hopefully you did something. You went out on holiday or something cool.
I will admit, man, that we have not done anything to
Really?
to fight. Like, yeah, because it seems like ever since that fight, like my health just deteriorated.
So talk to me about the Blake Donnelly fight. So at the time of this recording, it's not public yet. You are not going to be defending at Eternal MMA 72. You're withdrawing from the fight. By the time people are watching this, they'll have already known that this fight's off. I wanted to give you an opportunity because I know that you don't always get to tell your side of things. Sometimes things just kind of like, oh, the fight's off, and then people are like, oh, well, you know, this guy's ducking me, or this is this, or that's that. So I wanted to give you the opportunity, David. Like, and I don't want you to share anything you're not comfortable sharing, but the fight's not happening. I know that's got to be a disappointment for you.
It's yeah, it's freaking it's devastating to say the least, man. Like, uh, again, like I'm a competitor at heart, and I feel like I can just push through these issues,
Mm-hmm.
and make it out the other side and fight, type thing. And again, I feel almost an obligation as a fighter to do so. But it is just by far like to do that would be such a terrible decision, and given the state of my health at the moment.
We'll also consider the fact that you are one of the top fighters in Australia right now. I really don't think you have very much further to go until I'll see you on the Contender Series, that I will see you fighting in Perth. And for you to go out there not 100% against a guy of this caliber who who's listen, there are probably other guys. If it were a different matchup, you probably would be like maybe more tempted to be like, I could probably go ahead. I could probably go ahead with it and come out the other side just peachy keen. This guy Blake Donnelly, you have to be at 100% to fight a guy like this, and you know who this guy is. You fought him before, and I know that you're aware of like how good he is and what sort of challenge he brings to the table for anybody who has to fight him.
Yes, yeah. In particular, with the matchup, like skills wise, as all styles wise, like uh, I know where I need to be,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that to get there in these conditions is just extremely unlikely. Unfortunately, even against lesser opponents, like it would not be smart for me to continue at this stage.
Yeah. Well,
It's
it is unfortunate. This is probably like the last big Aussie card that I'm aware of for the year. But I hoped in 2023, early in 2023, I hope I see you out there maybe February, March when you're healthy, when you're ready to go, so you can defend at 100%. I think that's really important. Before I let you go, let's talk about the rest of this card. Eternal MMA 72. There's some really interesting ones on here, though. Gillies versus Alavi. That's really interesting. Of course, my man JVH is going up against Diego Pereira. A very interesting fight for the featherweight title. Can you talk to me like what if you get to be a fan just like me for this card? What's a fight on here that you're really keen on watching?
Oh, bro, like for me, I can't look past my boy Johnny against Matt Myers.
Oh,
Yeah,
excellent.
yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
that's the main event, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Talk to me about that one. I don't know a whole lot about your guy, Frazier. He's taking on Matt Myers. For people who are unaware, that is for the middleweight Eternal MMA Championship title.
Yeah, yeah, man. Well, after this, brother, you might want to look into John Fraser. Like, uh, dude's top notch. And
I know the name. I can't recall watch. I can't recall any of his fights though. I just you also have to keep in mind it's like 4 a.m. up here when I'm watching some of these fights,
oh,
so it's pretty like you have to go into a really dark place to watch Aussie MMA up here. You really do. It's I don't recommend it. I don't recommend watching it live up here for anybody.
yeah,
UFC Fight Pass, it'll be there for you in the morning. But there's certain people I know when they're fighting. It's like Justin's fighting. I'll be up for it. Like it's
yeah,
gonna.
yeah,
I'll. I've figured it out. Like I'm like, okay, this is when it starts. Okay, he'll probably be fighting around, and then I guess, and bam, I haven't missed a fight of his since.
yeah, man. With this matchup, bro. So they fought each other on the last card with me and Aiden.
Mhm.
Uh, John ended up taking the fight. I think it was on 5 days' notice. Uh, type thing, yeah, because
Wow.
yeah, the opponent Matt was meant to fight, got injured, they had to pull out. So Johnny's taken it. I think it was 5 days. Uh,
Oh my God. Was it a
but
catch weight?
it had to be a catch weight
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So
What a stud. 5 days notice. I mean,
uh-huh.
you hear it before, but like it just blows my mind. I'm like, oh my God, how do you get up off your couch? I say that like somewhat, tongue in cheek, because I know that isn't really a thing when you're a fighter at your level. You're always in the gym, but no, without a camp, you're not anywhere near like where you normally are physically or mentally. And then to just like go out there, like I love it. I love to see it. I really do. Justin going up against Diego. That's going to be a fantastic fight. These guys know each other. They know each other very well. Um,
Yeah.
I think Diego's a good fighter. I think Justin's a great fighter too. I think it's going to be really interesting. What are your thoughts like when you look at this fight for Diego to win? What do you think Diego has to do? And then for Justin to win, what do you think Justin has to do?
Well, for Diego, man, he really has to switch on.
Mm-hmm.
Like Diego's an absolute killer in there, but sometimes he's just not mentally just not there. Like he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
show up, or I don't know, disappears pretty early in the fight. Right, but if he's on and he stays mentally engaged, he's a hard man to beat.
Mm-hmm.
It,
And I mean,
it,
he has fought. He's fought some of the best fighters that Australia can offer. So when you look at his record, you'll look at it and be like, "Yeah, he's an 8-6 guy. He's not that great." Well, the caliber of his opponents, it's up there. So I think that says something about him. It really does.
yeah, but if we look across over to Justin, Justin has the same problem I have, in that nobody seems to give him any credit.
Like, would you believe me? I haven't told Justin this.
It,
I actually got I think I had him on the show, and I think I commented on one of the Eternal MMA posts or whatever. And I had a few people like DM me about that, like, and they were just talking shit to me. Uh, and I'm just oh, your boy's gonna get smoked. You know nothing. And I just liked what they wrote. I never responded back, but I thought it was funny. I don't think I ever told Justin that, but I just thought it was funny that people actually took the time to message me over that. because I was like
yeah,
the only person in the comments thinking like Justin was going to win, and guess what? He did. You know, all love and respect to Muhammad. I'm sure he's a great guy, but hey, I just call it as I see it, and I knew that fight was going to go that way, and it sure enough did.
yes, yeah. Yeah, but no, so I feel like yeah, he runs into that issue. Like no one gives him the time of day, but he goes out and he gets the win.
When I look at Justin, the thing that stands out to me so much, like I think he's fast. He looks very fast when I see him. I'm sure you've trained with him before. He's a big man, 6 feet tall. He can make 145 pounds. Was that 65 kilos? Is that what that
Yeah,
is?
it's under 66. Yeah,
Okay. So I'm just like, oh my God. Like, how can, number one, how can a guy that big make the weight? I don't understand. But he just seems so fast, despite, and I'm sure that's a big weight cut for him. But and you would expect a big guy like that to maybe like not be as fast with that weight cut, but he looks so fast to me, and his striking is just on point. And he uses that to set up all the other things about his game, like his clinch work. People don't want to, after a while, people don't want to strike with Justin. Then they want to clinch him up. That's where they run into problems because his jiu-jitsu, his submission game, ask the last three guys in a row what that's been like. And I tell you what, I love watching that man fight. Love him.
yeah,
Justin.
exactly. And the big thing is, man, is like yeah, unless you knock him out like Rod Costa was able to,
Mm-hmm.
like he just will not go away.
No, no,
Yeah,
he's like annoying. Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like he's just a no. I wouldn't want to fight. I wouldn't want to fight Justin just because he's just so big. I'm just like, oh my God. Like honestly, like he should be like really, I understand why he does it. He's got to do it. He's got to do what he's got to do. But like lightweight, I'm like, okay, like that's a normal average size lightweight. I can see that. But like when you see him at 145 pounds, it's like, oh my God, everyone else looks so small compared to him. He's like Max Holloway out there.
Yeah, yeah. You should see how high this man jumps.
Oh
Like
my
good
God.
look.
I know. I know he could probably like jump 10 feet in the air and freaking knee your ceiling off or something like
Uh,
that. Guy's absolutely crazy. I wanted to thank you, David, so much for being on my show. It really was a pleasure to have you on. I don't get to talk to very many Aussies. I hope that changes. And I hope, more importantly than that, that I can see you compete healthily and I can see you get your arm raised again because I know what it would be. I know how close you are. And I think it's always good for the sport to get more Australians, more people aren't from America into the UFC. I think that's so important because I think it's great for the UFC when we're able to bring in talent from abroad. Can you talk to me really quick before I let you go?
yeah, yeah,
Getting an opportunity to get into the UFC, that's something that everyone talks about. I'm not going to ask you that question because I know you would tell me, like, oh, it'd be a great feeling, blah, blah, blah. In your mind, what is key to staying in the UFC? There, a lot of people don't talk about that. They always talk about, oh, getting in would be so great. But what we know at that level, everyone wants to get in. But what are you doing to stay in? I don't think there's enough mental thought being put behind that question. So I'd be curious to hear your answer.
yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, that makes me think about something Joe Lopez, as Alexander Volkanovski's coach said. And like once you get there, that's where the work begins.
Mm,
Uh, I think because the trouble with the goal of getting into the UFC is it's like having any major goal. But once you reach it, you get that feeling of like you get this. You, there's a sudden good feeling of having achieved the goal, but then that evaporates and you're left almost feeling empty.
yeah.
Type thing. There's something about achieving a goal or that leaves you sort of feeling that way. And so when people get into the UFC, they get that feeling because I've achieved it. I'm here now. And they forget that like this is where the real work begins. Because if you don't put in the work, you won't be staying very long.
Yeah. And I think it's sad because like you will see guys have great fights, whether it be an Eternal or Cage Warriors or something like that. They'll put on these epic fights or the Contender Series, and then they'll fall flat when they make their UFC debut.
Yeah,
And it's just like, did you lose the hunger or focus? Because it has only been 6 months, 9 months, short amount of time's elapsed, but you look like a totally different person out here. And so that's always kind of like one thing I kind of like watch for guys that have won huge fights to send them over the hump to like get into the UFC. It's like, well, how are they going to respond? Because you go from being that main card guy, right, to the early
Yeah,
prelim fight where like people are still getting beers and stuff. They haven't even sat down yet, and you're
yeah,
walking out unless you are fighting in your hometown. You're walking out to what, the UFC Apex where nobody's there. It's like, how are you going to respond to that? Because some guys need that energy to feed off of.
yeah. Well, it's a because it's a completely different environment
Mm-hmm.
from like a regional show. Like you said, like you go from the top of the regional shows. You know, you're the freaking regional champ. You're usually the main event, co-main event, somewhere on the main card type thing. And there's a lot of buzz and hype around you, and then suddenly you're in the UFC. You're right at the bottom. Like I
Yeah.
said,
You're
you're
at
the
the Apex, the first
yeah,
night on a UFC fight night card.
yeah. And like you said, people are just they're still buying their drinks, still showing up, sorting out their Ubers at the hotel rather than actually at the fights.
Right.
Uh,
David, thank
yeah,
you
yeah.
so much for your time. I know that summer's just getting started for you guys. I know you have other places to be and people you'd rather spend your time with than me. I don't take it personally. But before I let you go, I wanted to give you an opportunity. I know you have a lot of people that sponsor you and do what they need to do to make sure that the Smiling Assassin is taken care of. So if there are any sponsors or anyone that you would like to thank, I want to give you the opportunity to do that before I let you go today.
First of all, let's go through the gym. So I just want to thank my coaches and teammates and everyone, from Ignite Martial Arts, from Hellraiser, from Muscle Heart, from Tribal, the guys down at CMBT who trained with me just recently, and the guys at Freestyle. And I want to thank Cage and Canvas for giving me the best set of gloves I've ever had in my life, man. And both hitting the bag and sparring, like I freaking love them. Guardian for giving me my walkout masks. Always feel great walking out with them. Havoc clothing, and they made my recent fight shirt. I think that turned out pretty well. I'm quite happy with that. At Author for the grappling gear, mainly rash guards. I freaking love those guys. And just CNBT Nutrition for sending me a bunch of supplements as well. They're phenomenal. And hopefully that's about it, bro.
Perfect. Perfect.
Oh, need a shout out Eternal as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Got to thank the guys that sign the checks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks to freaking yeah, Cam White, the freaking Dana White of Aussie MMA, Cam O'Neill, the man, and like as well as everyone who goes in, like it puts any work into the Eternal shows, man. The media team, people working behind the scenes, that what they've done with the show is incredible. Cool, and yeah, it takes it's an entire team effort. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mr. Martinez, can't wait to see you make the leap up very, very soon. I think people should enjoy you while they still can and while they can see you cheaply at Eternal MMA because the price for admission is about to go up when you're fighting in Perth on this UFC card later on, or somewhere up here down the line. The price for admission will jump up. Thank you for being with me today, and I will see you very, very soon.